Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is now 5:30, and I will call this regular meeting of the Burnsville City Council to order. It is our tradition to stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, and we invite you to join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tonight's meeting is being conducted both in person and online. And the public can join us by going to burnsvillemn.gov/meetings or view us on Comcast Channel 16 or 859. The public can also participate through Zoom by joining us at zoom.us/join. And more information is available on our meeting webpage and in the council agenda packet. The next item is announcements about upcoming meetings, and then we have two proclamations this evening. All of our meetings are held here in the council chambers unless it is noted that it's going to be in another location. We have regular council meetings scheduled for Tuesday, May 3rd at 5:30, Tuesday, May 17th at 5:30, and a work session that's scheduled for Tuesday, May 10th at 5:30 p.m. We have a special work session that's scheduled for Tuesday, April 26th at 5:30 p.m., and that meeting is going to be downstairs in the Dakota B room. And so the first proclamation this evening is for Earth Day and Arbor Day, April 29th, 2022. Whereas Burnsville has taken great pride in the quality of our natural environment, including the beautiful shade trees and native plants that provide many essential services to the community and enrich our lives in many ways. And whereas the City of Burnsville Sustainability Plan lays out the foundation for the city's continuing sustainability efforts and addresses preservation and expansion of tree resources. And whereas we need to practice safe environmental approaches in managing our forests, lakes, wetlands, and open spaces. And whereas Burnsville promotes development that maintains or enhances economic opportunity and community well-being while protecting and restoring the natural environment. The purpose of the Earth Day Arbor Day celebration is to emphasize the importance of preserving our natural environment through sustainable activities such as recycling, waste reduction, and resource conservation. Burnsville recognizes the need to protect and preserve the beauty of our community by promoting good stewardship of our natural resources for future generations. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Elizabeth Couts, Mayor of the City of Burnsville, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim April 29th, 2022 as Earth Day and Arbor Day in the City of Burnsville. In celebration, the city hosts an annual community tree sale at the end of April. We encourage the community to participate in the tree sale and to learn more online at www.burnsvillemn.gov. Proclaimed this 19th day of April 2022. The next proclamation is Tourism Awareness Week. Whereas tourism and hospitality has been the foundation of a healthy workforce, serving as one of the largest private sector employers in the U.S., supporting close to 15,000 Dakota County jobs in 2020. And whereas leisure and hospitality in Minnesota is a $11.7 billion industry, employing more than 205,000 people in 2020, generating $731 million in state sales tax. And whereas the past 2 years, the coronavirus pandemic devastated every sector of the travel industry and staggering declines in 2021 and 2020, affecting every community in the country, including Burnsville, Minnesota. The rebound of travel will drive the rebuilding of the U.S. economy and American workforce. Tourism and hospitality in Burnsville provides full-time and part-time employment for the citizens of our city. Whereas the Burnsville Convention and Visitors Bureau has dedicated itself for 35 years to stimulating visitor traffic to the Burnsville area, creating income for both the leisure and hospitality industry and the general business community. Whereas the city of Burnsville takes great pride in the welcoming hospitality it shows its guests. Now therefore, I, Elizabeth Couts, Mayor of the City of Burnsville, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim the week of May 1st through the 7th, 2022 to be National Travel and Tourism Week in the City of Burnsville, and urge citizens to honor and celebrate this special event proclaimed this 19th day of April 2022. And I'd like to recognize the Executive Director of our Convention and Visitors Bureau, really, it's Experience Burnsville, Amy Burrell. Thank you for being here. The next item on the agenda is citizens' comments. This is the opportunity for anyone in the audience to address the council on an item that is not on the printed agenda and not in application form that will be coming before us at a future date. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address the council? Ms. Collins, anyone on Zoom?
No one that is requested to speak.
Okay, thank you. And so, seeing no one, we will move on to the next item, and this is additions to the final agenda, and this is for emergency items only. City Manager Lindberg, are there any emergency items to come before the body?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Council members? Okay, we'll move on. The next item is the consent agenda. The consent agenda is a group of items that's considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. However, an item on the consent agenda can be removed for a separate discussion and vote. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes an item on the consent agenda to be removed for a separate discussion and vote? Anyone? Anyone online? Okay. City Manager Lindberg, does the staff have any request for an item to be removed?
No, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Members of the council, may I have a vote for the consent agenda, please?
Move to approve. Second.
Councilmember Gustafson makes the motion, second by Councilmember Workman. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. And the motion carries. Mr. Ramey and Mr. Healy, thank you so much for your long time commitment and dedication to the city of Burnsville. We're truly grateful for your partnership, and I think the last piece of the largest tract of land that was left, but also a very difficult piece, but you've been persistent, and out of persistence comes opportunities. So thank you so much.
Yes, we're very grateful for the excellent participation of the council and of the entire staff at Burnsville in developing that difficult piece of property. Very, very complimentary with regard to the quality of the work that the city did on it.
Thank you. Okay.
It looks like somebody did sign up to speak to something not on the agenda for citizens' comments. The Sunset Park is not on the agenda.
Okay, I don't see her. She was
Ms.
with Ryan. I think Ms. Graff was speaking with
Okay.
Mr. Peterson.
Okay, good, good. Thank you. Just wanna
Okay.
make sure we didn't miss it.
Yeah. All right. We are at the consent agenda, and the first item on the consent agenda is a public hearing. And this is to adopt the resolution for 2022 street improvement. Presenting this evening is Jen Desroot, our city engineer. Good evening, Ms. Desroot, and welcome.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. So this is the second time we've presented the street assessment public hearing at the same night as we award the contract. And by doing that, some of the benefits are gives property owners more time to pay. It also helps with property sales that may be occurring during the summer months. In our past time, we would wait until September, and then they would have until November 15th to pay, so a smaller window. So this is the second year that we've done this, and it's been successful last year. Hopefully going forward it will be as well. So there's a lot on this slide. This is the project timeline. We've done a lot of work on this project starting back in February of 2021 when we first initiated the project by ordering the preliminary report. And then in last fall, we held neighborhood open houses in the neighborhoods. I just put 4 behind there. We did it 4 times in 4 different locations. The council actions that have been taken so far are the more highlighted and bold ones. So we have a JPA with Lakeville because we are paving a portion of Buck Hill Road that's in Lakeville, and they're paying for it, so we have a JPA for that. In December, we had the preliminary report, and the council ordered the public hearing to order the project. We had a separate virtual open house with Buck Hill Road and the Ridges area to discuss some of the issues that are unique to those areas. And then on February 8th, we had the public hearing to order the project. In March, on March 22nd, a separate item to call for the assessment public hearing. We received bids in March 24th. Notices were mailed on April 1st. And then at your April 5th meeting, you declared the costs and ordered the preparation of the assessment roll. So that leads us all to tonight, where you've just awarded the 2 contracts, which were in your consent agenda, and now we have the assessment public hearing. We have construction occurring throughout the summer. We have pre-con scheduled soon, so we'll have schedules and we'll have the website up to date as soon as we have those schedules. Since we are changing the order of things, typically we hear from people at the end of the project how it went, and so we will continue with our customer satisfaction survey at the end of the project to get that feedback. And then if people choose to pay their assessment to avoid interest, that deadline is November 15th. And always we have to go back in the spring for final cleanup, punch list, final completion. Here's the map of the areas that are on the project this year. Areas in red are our reclamation areas, and areas in green are the rehab areas. So we have 3 strategies that we use. We don't have any reconstruction this year since we're not doing any water main work, but we're doing the reclamation, which is a full depth pavement replacement. We only replace curbs where needed, and then we do utility repairs as needed. And then for the rehabilitation areas, we do top 2 inches of pavement and then curb replacement as needed and some utility repairs. And then the areas that have reclamation from the map, the Colonial area, South Cross Heights, West Park, and Burnell Park. And the rehab areas are in the heart of the city, Portland Ridges area, and Buck Hill Road. Funding for this project, we have taxes or the infrastructure trust fund. Some of the streets are municipal state aid eligible, not all of them, but the ones that are, that there's some funding there. Special assessments, which is why we're here tonight. And then utility work is not paid for from special assessment. It's paid for by the utility funds, which are where we get our utility bills. So water, sewer, storm, and street lighting work is not assessed. For methodology, we do a frontage method. So we take the frontage 30 feet behind the property line. And for single families, we've adopted a per unit assessment. So all of the single family properties are the same. The street width is generally determined by land use, but in some areas, such as in the heart of the city, the roads are narrower, and so they're adjusted down to be prorated for their street width. And then we assess up to 40% of the street costs, and I say up to because we don't actually ever make it that far. With the 3-year running average, we're below the 40% actual assessment. We take the last 3 years of bids, and that's how we determine the rate for this year. And as I said, there's no assessment for utilities. At least 60%, although it's more, of the street work is not assessed, and any other work that's occurring at the same time. Sometimes there's utility work that happens concurrently. That's not the city doing that work, but it's not assessed. It's part of a utility project, and we coordinate with them. So for the rates this year, single family, the per unit rate is $2,024 per unit. and the rehabilitation rate is $1,741 per unit. The multifamily rate is per front foot, $33.58 per foot for reclaim and $21.88 for rehab. And then all other property types, commercial, industrial, usually have a wider road. Their assessment rates are higher, $47.89 per foot for reclaim and $26.81 per foot for rehab. Assessments can be prepaid in full to avoid interest by November 15th of 2022, so lots of time to prepay. We accept them by check, and there's also an online payment option. And then if you miss that date, then it will go on automatically, nothing needing to be done, go on to taxes for next year. And depending on the assessment amount, it would dictate the length of the assessment. So for most of our single-family residential, they're over 2,000, so it'd be a 15-year assessment with an interest rate of 3.5%. Here's just a comparison of some other cities. Our 2022 reclamation, just a little over 2,000, is really on the low side for other cities who are doing assessments. And this slide is the total cost breakdown. So about $7.1 million worth of work, and we're assessing about just under $1.4 million. We have ITF at $1.9 million. MSA is a big contributor this year because Buck Hill Road is an MSA route and through the Ridges area, so $2.2 million there. And then some utility funds are paying for their work. We have a little bit of sort of a road alleyway in the heart of the city that is paid for out of our facilities fund, and then Lakeville's portion is just under $300,000. So the total assessment portion is 19% of the project costs. And more for the people who are on the project, there's ways that we are communicating. We have a website that we keep up to date. Looks like my construction email and assessment email have gone blank, but it's construction@burnsvillemn.gov and assessments@burnsvillemn.gov. From our website, there's a notify us button to report issues, and then there's a e-subscribe button to sign up for weekly updates. And then as we're just getting started with the project, anyone who's listening, who's on the project, we just request notification for invisible fences or landscaping or trees near the curb or sidewalk, people who are planning to replace their driveway. If they have any drainage problems, hopefully we have known about it already and we're making those corrections. And so some of these things we are hoping that they'd already told us, but if we're opening it up, now's the time to make those corrections. Also, if anyone has special needs, disabilities that need to be addressed, we'd like to know that too. We did get a memo that was dated March 29th from the Villas in the heart of Burnsville. It's a 14-unit townhome community that's on the corner of 125th and 1st Avenue. And their concern, as was in your packet, was that how we are calculating the special assessment for them as a per unit basis. And so just a update on how we assess the multifamily is each of those is kind of their own frontage is assessed and divided over all of their units. So comparing to other properties is not really apples to apples. Townhomes are different than condos. And so that was a concern that was raised. I don't believe it was a written objection, a technical written objection, unless someone is here who wants to speak to it. But that is one of the things that was in your packet that I wanted to provide a little bit more explanation. And then I think you did receive a written objection that was handed out today. And Michelle, did that copies get made or just have the one? Okay.
I did not have time for
Okay, he just handed it to us in the hallway. His main concern is that there are garbage trucks that are going over the roads, and his concern was with the amount of trucks and how that's damaging the roads. He did leave. He said he is not going to speak tonight.
So it wasn't about the assessment, it was concerns about the garbage trucks that, the
Yeah.
wear and tear.
That was my understanding after talking with him.
Okay.
So this is a public hearing, and objections must be written and submitted before the end of the public hearing. If the objector wanted to take it to the next step, we would take those written objections, reach out to them, and tell them the next step, should the council adopt the assessment roll as is, the next step is that they would now file with the district court.
Okay. Any questions from Ms. Desrude? Okay, thank you so much. And this is a public hearing, and I have Mr. Sanders from Knox Drive who wishes to speak.
What was his first name?
Patrick?
He left.
Okay.
He said I talked to him in the hallway, and
He's okay?
I answered his questions.
Okay. How about Mr. Slitt from Hollow Park?
He was the objector, and he also left.
Okay. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to this item? Anyone virtual? Ms. Collins?
No one online, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Members of the council, I will now close the public hearing. Your desire.
Move to approve.
Okay, there's a motion to,
Second.
there's a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay, and the motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, the next item is 5B, and this item is a public hearing as well, and this is a resolution adopting the 2021 Code Enforcement Assessments. Presenting this evening is Christopher Forsland, our Licensing and Code Enforcement Coordinator. Mr. Forsland, good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. This is the public hearing for, and you might have noticed that this is for the entirety of 2021. Typically, we would do this twice a year. COVID's had an effect on a lot of things. This is one of them. But this is the public hearing on any assessments that we assign to be for outstanding fees for code compliance. And these fees may be anything from mowing fees, reinspection fees, or other charges to gain compliance with the local code. And it covers the time frame from January 1st to December 31st, 2021. Notices were sent out to all the property owners regarding their code violations. On March 22nd, Council called for the public hearing and declared the cost and set the date for this hearing. Notices were mailed as well to the affected property owners on March 25th, and we're inviting all of those who may have questions on those fees to an open house on April 6th. And at that April 6th open house, we had nobody appear or to discuss any of these charges. Much like the other assessments, any property owner who has an objection has the right to issue a request in writing, an appeal here tonight. And to the best of my knowledge, none of those have been received. And the total assessment when the agenda background was done was $6,462.50. As of 1 hour ago, it was $5,717.50. So it's dropped slightly.
Any questions for Mr. Forsland? You've done some great work. You keep taking that down every year. Yeah, and this is another big reduction.
I hate to say it, COVID had an impact, and so did a really dry spring last year, if you recall. And I think that made some impacts.
Okay, thank you. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to this item? Anyone who wishes to speak? Ms. Collins, anyone online?
No one, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Members of the council, I will now close the public hearing. Your pleasure.
Motion to approve.
Councilmember Workman makes the motion.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Gustafson. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay, and the motion carries. Thank you very much. We now move on to item 5C, and this is the Ames Center quarterly update. Presenting this evening is Mr. Brian Luther. Good evening, Mr. Luther, and welcome.
Good evening. Thank you, Madam Mayor, City Council members, and the citizens of Burnsville. It's an honor to be here tonight. I was looking back as I was putting the presentation together, and the last time I presented to City Council was April 13th of 2021. So it has been a little while. And, there's been a few things that have changed since that presentation. So I'm going to run through it. It's pretty brief, just a few slides, and then I'm obviously open it up for questions and answers. And if you have any questions along the way, don't hesitate to reach out. But I have been working very closely with my liaisons with City Manager Lindberg and with Council Member Dan Keeley, and we meet quite often to run through any operational issues and to go through items, and still working, meeting with the city finance team monthly, bi-monthly, depending on what we have going on. So working very closely with city staff, and want to thank them for all their hard work and working with me through all these different transitions and items that are taking place. I will jump in here.
Just X out of that, Brian. Brian, that's not yours. That was just X out.
What's that? Oh, sorry.
Should we go over street improvements?
I don't think I could do as good of a job as.
I'm not quite sure you want to present on this one. Thank you very much, appreciate it. All right, so since we met last in April, we were able to begin operating at full capacity in June of 2021. So that was really the time we went from all of our various restrictions, opening and closing, to really being able to start and get the year going. Second half of the year really picked up as a team at the Ames Center. We got really good at postponing events and rescheduling and going through those processes over and over, and all that hard work did pay off as we got into the second half of the year, particularly as we got into the fourth quarter and were able to do a lot of the holiday programs. One of the items that we did handle through our capital budget was we purchased a new food and beverage point of sale system. We ended up going with a Square system, which has been very beneficial for us, and we're able to really get a lot of real-time results, and it's been very good for us to look at our sales and our cost of goods and everything in real time. So it's been very successful. We also, in partnership, applied with the City of Burnsville and secured the SBA Shuttered Venue Operators Grant, which is $1.028 million. And so we're very pleased to have that, and to be able to see that to help go back to cover any of the expenses that we had, or any revenues we had lost. And the big job is we really went forward to starting to fill our vacant full-time positions. So went from 3, right now we're budgeted for 9 positions, and we have 3 positions at this point still vacant, so we're still working on that. And as every business is dealing with right now, labor workforce shortages are probably the largest challenge we're faced with. But I have to hand it to my team. Everyone's jumping in and filling in various capacities, not just in their respective areas, but across the board too. So we're seeing that and very appreciative of it. Programming highlights, we had a great competitive dance season last year, even with the capacity restrictions. Fourth quarter came in with 47 holiday performances, including 2 sold out of the Rocky Mountain Christmas show, which I can safely say today we have booked again for next December. So great show, and looking to have that one back again as an annual event. And we're able to do a small season, and I say small because typically we do about 152 shows with Church Basement Ladies and a Black Box Theater. For between September and February, we did a smaller 24 performance season, but still had 15 bus groups and worked within smaller capacities. So very pleased with that. So our final year-end, our financials, we did better than budget. Our budget, if we look at the center column, was the original budget. That was comprised of a 25% venue occupancy load, and that was what we felt comfortable going into. Once we hit June 1st, we revisited and worked on our budget to change that to go forward at the full capacity. And we saw obviously a lot more revenue. We ended up, our total revenue was $1.3 million. We had total expenses of 1.4. We did take a loss of 40,000 compared to a budgeted loss of 147,000. So we saw a gain of 107,000. So
we're very pleased with being able to turn that around in a year that was very uncertain with items. But obviously watched our operational expenses very closely. Anything we could manage, we did, and obviously wanted to generate the revenue through shows and getting back into aggressively programming as we typically do. Takes us into quarter one. Now, as we had a great response in fourth quarter, we had Omicron. And, you know, holiday programming is one thing because there's tradition involved and there's a lot of excitement, and then we saw our numbers go up a lot. We saw, as you'll see in the financial slide, there was a significant impact. We did end up having to postpone some shows, and the shows we did have didn't hit the budgeted ticket sales. We saw the shows that should have done better perform. We still had some good ones, and you'll see here in a minute. So not all shows were impacted, but enough where, you know, first quarter didn't hit our expectations again from a budget that we had assembled back in June, July timeframe of 2021. So, you know, just something that we weren't able to really forecast, but I think we still managed very well. The live arts and entertainment industry is rebounding. Artists are back on the road, and I can say I've been spending a tremendous amount of my time working with a lot of artists who book and have programmed back into the venue. So very pleased to see that take place. And the good news is our competitive dance events occupancies are back to pre-COVID levels and with 100% occupancy. So you know, we're very pleased with that through quarter one. Oh, go back. Now to highlight a few items that did take place. We did have some sold out events along the way. One Night of Queen sold out. We had David Landau. Thursday night we have Henry Rollins, the Good to See You tour, and that's sold out. We still have a couple more tickets left, but it will be sold out by Thursday evening. And then Church Basement Ladies' 20th anniversary show took place last week, and we had over 20 bus groups. This was in the Masquerade Dance Theater during the day matinee show, and it was full. Buffet lunch for about 100, and it was a big day, and so we're very pleased. We unfortunately had an unfortunate situation at the end, but with one of the bus drivers, but it was just a great event overall. So that's going to kick off. We are going to be announcing our season in the Black Box here very soon, and that'll be a brand new Church Basement Ladies production. So everyone is excited to get back. We're excited to have them. And in October, we have Charlie Barron's 4 sold-out shows as we sit today. And he is a YouTube comedian and very funny gentleman from Wisconsin. If you've not seen him, highly recommend you watch his content on YouTube. It's clean, it's fun, and it pokes fun at Wisconsin people, and probably some Minnesotans too. But we'll just say it's fun to have him in, and the response has just been tremendous. So we're trying to get a 5th show right now. We'll see if he's interested in securing that. But very popular, and we're very proud. And it's just great to have something come out of the gate that strong. So.
Do we have Concert for Caring this coming Saturday?
We do, yes, and thank you for mentioning that. We do have the Concert for Caring event, which is the Fleetwood Mac show this Saturday, and there are still tickets available. They're going quick, though. We've had a huge increase in sales over the last 2 weeks, so I'd recommend any of our viewing audience to buy their tickets as quick as possible, because that will be on Saturday, and it's going to be a big show.
I think Elizabeth should try to get some Henry Rollins tickets.
Yeah.
It's a fun one. I love Henry. He's very entertaining.
Are you coming with me?
No.
I will join you. I will be happy to. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, you should tell everybody what time the Concert for Caring is.
I believe it's 7:30.
Okay.
Concert. So go to aimcenter.com. All the information will be there for purchasing tickets. I believe it is a 7:30 performance, and get there early. A lot of great things going on. Silent auction. Great fundraiser for our local Rotary Club. So our quarter one financial forecast, as I had mentioned before, we did see an impact of Omicron. And if you look at the third column, you'll see there is, we had a pretty significant impact compared to what our budgeted revenue would be for first quarter. You know, with the amount of shows that can't postponed or ticket sales, we did see a drop. We are, at first quarter, we're down just under 50,000, so about $49,000 compared to budget. Now, you know, that is a concern, but knowing the Omicron impact, you know, we knew it wasn't going to hit the numbers we had budgeted. When I go forward to the next slide for quarter two, we are looking at a very strong second quarter. We really are hitting numbers that are closer to the original budget and actually exceeding it. And this is as of today. I did a final look through some of our actual completed April events and just with some of our recent programming. And so we're actually to the good to about just under $35,000. So we're seeing that at about a $14,000 gap. And at the halfway point of where we are for this year, I feel very good considering that impact that we had for Omicron. And to take it even a step further, I mean, looking at our budget for year end at this point, I'm feeling confident we'll meet or exceed it as we sit today, just with the amount of business and what we're seeing for interest within the facility and in our booking. So.
And your dance competition is doing phenomenal.
They're doing
also,
great,
right,
yes.
right
They're doing very well, and we're seeing good returns. Some of them, even compared to budget, are doing better. And we've done some changes. We've restructured our menu for food and beverage and some of our hours of operation for some cost savings, but then also to just see some, for our cost of goods, obviously for food product is going up. And so we're trying to use as many products as we can that can be combined into as many menu items as possible, so we're minimizing waste and to be as efficient as we can. And we're also seeing some of the labor costs within that area go up too, but that's everywhere seeing that. But it's been going very well on that side of things and seeing great attendance levels, and it is going well, you know, for dance competitions. We expect them to get better as the second half of the season begins.
And you're driving a lot of business to the restaurants around the area and coffee shops.
Yep, that's our goal. We
Yeah.
want to make sure everybody's
drive
busy
a
and
lot of
part of the
business.
city. So it is great. So for some of our upcoming shows, we have Dakota Valley Symphony's Young Artist Concert this Sunday on April 24th. That'll be their last performance of the season, so great opportunity to get out and enjoy one more concert before next year. Twin City Ballet Giselle is going to be performing on May 7th and 8th. And then we have the Floydian Slip, Pink Floyd show on May 26th. And another fun one with Five for Fighting and Verve Pipe on July 22nd. So aside from all the dance competitions and recitals, we've got some good concerts coming up, and we're going to be announcing a lot more and going on sale with a lot of other shows for the second half of the year here very soon. So all in all, everyone's hanging in there. Everyone in the building's working very hard and make sure we can fulfill everything we need to, and just continuing to rebound and rebuild. So.
Councilmember Dan Keeley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Brian, I think you understated how much of a rebound you orchestrated in 2021. Given that most of the time you're booking 6 months to 2 years out, having a volatile circumstance with the pandemic and 25% capacity suddenly lifted. It wasn't like they telegraphed, okay, 5 months from now we're going to lift that, right? You were able to really scramble and put together a strong second half to give us that $107,000 against budget improvement, getting us within 40,000, which, given the circumstances, is a really positive story to tell. But I know you worked a lot of days and nights, many days of the week, not just 5, throughout that whole 6 months. And I know in the holidays, you were living at that facility trying to get shows there and make sure they went well, and you were short-staffed. And so I just want to compliment and highlight the fact that didn't come easy. That 107,000 turnaround was not something that just happened. And you had to go out of your normal routine and go out of your way and do a lot of extra effort to get these shows in and have that kind of successful second half, given the switch was, switched on short notice. And then, of course, the first quarter was unfortunate, but as we sort of came off the Delta variant and rolled right as that was tailing off, or maybe not even before it started tailing off, the Omicron surged up, and it didn't really peak until January, but it was obviously scaring a lot of people. I think first quarter turned out not bad, considering how bad it could have been. And so, I mean, there's a little resilience in our audience, and we're happy to see people buying tickets and attending shows even through that period of time. As you noted, there was a few successful shows that didn't get hurt as bad, but there's a powerful story in that 2021 number to get to $40,000 loss. That's quite a dramatic comeback, so thank you for all the effort.
Oh, you're welcome, you're welcome.
Yeah, please understand and know how much we appreciate you, and with deep gratitude for all the work that you've been doing. It hasn't been easy for a lot of businesses, but you're in the hospitality and entertainment business, and that was shuttered.
Yeah.
So,
No,
but thank you for all of your hard work and your team. And thank you for everything that you all did to make the state of the city really come off wonderfully yesterday. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, you're welcome, and I'll pass that along to the team
Yeah.
as well, too. It was a great event yesterday, and it's just fun to see everyone back together again, and it
Yeah.
just,
And the upstairs lobby was full.
yes,
It was
yes.
That was the biggest crowd at the
Was a
State of the
big
City
crowd.
address.
It was great.
In the 20 years that I've been going or so, I've never seen that large of a crowd. It was
Yeah.
fantastic. Great
Yeah.
show,
Yeah.
great speech.
Yes.
Performance in the facility was
Yeah.
fantastic.
Absolutely.
I just amplify what we do. So thank you, everybody here, yeah, and to our staff as well, because they delivered. It was about all of you, and so thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah.
I will pass that along to the team. And, I want to thank you again, everyone with city council and city staff for all the support. And, there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes and a lot of teamwork. And so thank you very much. Appreciate that support.
Okay, any other comments or?
Keep it up.
Buy your tickets.
Yeah. Remember, Concert for Caring, because that's for Rotary.
Yes.
And they do a lot of things. And I believe, aren't you in that Rotary?
I
Or you
do
in the other
partic-
one?
I am kind of in the noon club, yes. I've been a little absent, I do have to say, but I'm still part of the group. I still
of the
serve
noon
on
Rotary,
committees, particularly on court
Yeah.
committee and a few of the others. So
Yeah.
actually, I went to visit with them a couple weeks ago to give them an update, and so I have a feeling I'll be back in the group again here very soon.
So the ticket office is open tomorrow, Friday, and Saturday?
Yes, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday.
Yes.
And so our hours are on our website, but we are staying with our reduced hours. We're finding it's working very well. People still have the chance to come in and buy their tickets in person, which a lot of our ticket buyers really value that experience, and we want to provide it. I don't know when we're going to go back to a daily, being open on a daily level at this point. We're going to evaluate that, but right now it's working really well to keep those hours in place to be able to provide that to our buyers.
And the hours?
The hours, I believe, are 11 to 6 on Wednesday and Friday, and then 10 to 2 on Saturday. But please go to the website and just double verify, because those have changed a little bit too.
Yeah,
But,
we can have people here and they can go look. I'm just giving you a lot of opportunity.
I know.
Because people are watching, and so,
No,
Yeah.
thank you. Yes, I know.
It's a bit of a pop quiz as well.
yeah.
Yeah, a lot of
I'm
numbers
just
going through my head right now with different
Just
days and
teeing it
times
up
and
for
different
you,
things. Yes,
Brian.
I
Just
appreciate
teeing
it.
it up.
Yep, I appreciate that.
Mayor and council, I would also say from a staff perspective that Brian has been a tireless advocate through a very difficult period of time to make the Ames Center a smashing success. I really appreciate his partnership. It's been a great few months working directly with him, and it's very much reflected in the results. So thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, City Manager Lindbergh, for the partnership that you've formed with Mr. Luther, and everything's going well, and also for Councilmember Keeley and his liaison work and advocacy role. So thank you. Okay, thank you for coming in. Good
You're
news.
welcome, yes. Great. Look
Okay.
forward to seeing you guys soon.
Yeah, thank you. And now the next item is the ordinance repealing and replacing Title III, Chapter 1, intoxicating liquor and 3.2% malt liquor, and amending the liquor fee schedule. And presenting this evening is our city clerk, Ms. Collins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, City Council. I'm bringing this to you as it has now gone through the Code Review Task Force that going through all of our city code at this time. And this is one of those items that have come through the task force without a unanimous consensus. So we're bringing this to you for further clarification. I'm going to go through a little bit of the process of how the Code Review Task Force got to this point, so you understand what they were aware of and when, and how the process worked. In November 2021, we did an intro to liquor licensing session. A lot of the task force members were not really that familiar with how liquor licensing worked. So we went through like the different types of liquor license, on sale, off sale, that kind of thing, what the state authority is for the city to grant those licenses. We outlined where Burnsville was more restrictive than statute. There's a few areas. We reviewed the timeline of where council had consideration of different, or action over the years of different pieces of those areas. And we also did a comparison with other cities. One of the things we noted on here was the separation requirement of 3/4 of a mile and the freestanding building requirement. We did a survey of some other cities. We had 2 that did require the separation. We had 0 that required a freestanding building. We had 10 that required neither, and then 4 of those were municipal liquor stores, so they would not, as a municipal liquor operation, they could put those liquor stores anywhere they like to. And then in December, we had to cancel that meeting because of a snowstorm that came up all of a sudden, but we picked it back up January of 2022. We did hear testimony from our off-sale liquor license holders at that time. There was a split vote to retain the off-sale requirements, and that would be the freestanding building requirement. The task force voted 6-4 to retain that, and the 3/4 mile separation, the task force voted 7-3 to retain that. Of course, those requirements are not for the Burnsville Center retail area, just for outside of that area. In February 2022, they reviewed the remaining sections of Chapter 1 and directed staff to proceed with the edits as discussed, and then come back for final approval of the entire chapter with all the edits that had been discussed. In March, we did submit that final version for approval. Because some of the members were not present at that March meeting, that vote ended up being 4-4, but previously it had been like 6-4. They did recommend that the ordinance the amendment be considered by the council at this time, noting that the task force did disagree on those 2 particular items in this proposal. So the council has the option to adopt it as forwarded by the Code Review Task Force. It does include the items that had the disagreement in there. Still does retain the freestanding building requirement, still retains the 3/4 mile separation. The council has the option to remove both or one of those requirements if they want. Some of the task force members were not in favor of that, and we had one that submitted a written comment to you earlier today. And I think we also have some in the audience as well, and we also appear to have some of our off-sale liquor license holders in the audience. I would like to make a note that the summary ordinance does require a supermajority vote, so if there is a split vote of more than a 4-1 vote, we will need to address that item separately.
Okay.
I stand for any questions.
Councilmember Workman.
Thank you. Matt, can you tell me how many usual members do we have in these?
11.
11, and we were missing, you have to do that math for
The
me.
last.
What's 11 minus 8?
3.
We're missing 3.
On the last meeting.
My preference on this would be to send this back to the Code Review Task Force to bring back a complete recommendation when they've got full attendance. We've kind of tasked them with this, and, a 4-4 split because of absences, I think, can be overcome if we have a full
Sure.
roster.
I can tell you that as I demonstrated in the PowerPoint, that when they voted on those 2 particular items, which was the only issues that the Code Review Task Force had,
Yeah.
that it was voting in favor of recommending to keep them. So
Yeah.
we did have one person that was on Zoom that night that would have voted in favor to recommend them, but she was not, she did not have a
She needs to
medical
be-
exception to vote.
Okay.
So it was just unfortunate the way it happened. If we, returning this to the Code Review Task Force would not result in anything different, except you would maybe have a
another?
5-4 vote, or a
Yeah.
6-4 vote. That would be
It'll
your
still
best
come to
case
us.
scenario, in which case it
It still
still
comes
shows
back.
you that the task force has not changed their mind on that.
Fair enough.
Okay. Councilmember Schultz?
Thank you. So the onus on this is proving that the restriction needs to stay in place. So what was that driving need?
There were different arguments for that, as opposed to things like our existing license holders have made this investment into a freestanding building. There are also public safety issues that were brought up. I can tell you that I did check with our police chief, and that she did not see any significant issues if they were to stay or be removed. She had no strong feelings about it either way. Staff
Okay.
feels similarly. Administratively, it is not difficult to administer either way.
Okay, so the public safety is off the table, so then what we're really looking at is, because people invested in the past, we cannot change this. Is that a fair restatement of that?
I don't want to put any words into, to
Right.
recap the words incorrectly, but there was some argument to that. Jared, would you have any other,
Sure. I mean, I think it was a robust discussion amongst the task force. Obviously, issues of the investment came up, issues of safety came up. I think all the individual task force members probably had different, issues or concerns that swayed their vote one way or the other. But they did hear from the members of the community, the owners, and I think that influenced some of their vote as well.
Thank you.
We do have some folks who want to speak, and there is one person here from the task force, and I think I will ask him to come up first to speak. We already have the letter from Mr. Newsma. So, Mr. Rausch, please come to the podium. And I think you can be right here. Yes. Yeah, and give us your name and address for the record.
My name's Steve Roush, 12812 Pheasant Run, Burnsville. So I'm on the Code Review Task Force, and I was part of the discussions. My input for you is, I think being a small business owner is definitely a challenge. You make a number of investments. I think the city did a very good job in allowing individual businesses to have liquor available versus a municipal structure like other neighboring cities have. I think the city, when they first proposed the code to have a separation of distance and standalone building, both made good sense as far as allowing people to have access to liquor stores in their local area, but having a more dense, or let's say a larger number of liquor establishments along County Road 42. You have Total Wine, and Target, and a number of other venues there, MGM. So I think the overall, I'd say availability of that item for the public is well represented with the current code. And I just wanted to express my opinion that I think with our current small businesses that have standalone businesses that they've invested in, I'm a proponent of leaving the code the way it is. There is one other thing, and I'm not sure if it was in the review that we also added. I think adding the brew houses have really added to Burnsville. I know a number of neighborhood groups are there. I've been there a number of times over at Brixworth or whatever. But like Duluth, they also have a distillery option for I think it's Volkery, where you can go into like a distillery kind of tap room. I think the Code Review Task Force liked that idea as well. I'd like to see that incorporated as well.
Okay.
And so that's my thoughts.
Thank you so much for your participation. And also, when you retired from Collins, Rockwell, you didn't go away. You stayed engaged with your community. And so I want to thank you for that and for your thoughtfulness and in looking at, you know business so well. And you came from big business, but you also had a heart for all the small business owners. So thank you for your input.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Collins.
Madam Mayor, City Council, Task Force Member Roush makes a good point. One of the things that the staff and the task force and staff did incorporate into this final version was to add all the available liquor license, all the ones that are allowed by state are now incorporated into our new code. So they're all in there, and you can
Yep,
see that
I like that.
we've also, for those brand-new ones, we've added some fees that, to that, so that, and we took our our liquor fees as they are, compared them as to what other cities, if they were much higher than ours, then we didn't look to match theirs, that type of thing. We tried to stay in line with where our fees are, and just took an average and got to where we were. But we have not had any applications or even any requests for any of these extra licenses yet, but we thought we would be proactive and add them in there at this time, because why wait until we have the request and then we don't have a code to follow?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. Councilmember Gustafson.
Michelle, how many liquor licenses are available in the city right now?
We do not have a cap anymore.
Okay, so there's areas of the city that can still meet this three-quarter mile stretch.
There
of
are
liquor
a
store
couple
going.
areas in the city that
We have a
can
couple
meet
areas
it,
like that.
yes.
So we're not having people clamoring to get in here with liquor stores, and we have areas where people could put liquor stores if they would like to, correct?
I believe, well, definitely in the Burnsville Center area, because that doesn't have the restriction. However, I think there are maybe, I know there's one, maybe two. In your background, you did get a letter from Mr. Coughlin. He is now the owner of the property at the corner of County Road, or Highway 13 and Diffley, and that area would fall within, that would be an area that would be available to put a liquor store. And his request was to remove the freestanding building requirement, because I believe there's an existing strip mall there that he would be interested in using for that.
Yeah,
There's
but
an
he
existing
also,
freestanding building there too.
They also have a freestanding building there, yes.
he can enhance that property by taking down the gas station and put a freestanding building. Yeah. Councilmember Schultz.
Thank you. Could you list out what other businesses have to meet these types of requirements?
Currently, the tobacco license also has a three-quarter mile distance restriction. However, that is something that has also come up where we've had requests for businesses within the three-quarter mile, especially when you think about how tobacco shops have evolved over the years with the,
Hookah.
with the vaping and that type of thing, and they still fall under that tobacco license. Also, that three-quarter mile restriction doesn't apply to gas stations or grocery stores or those types of, it's only for those that primarily sell tobacco or nicotine-related products. And so, staff is recommending that we'll be recommending that the task force consider removing that, because we have not seen that those different types of businesses are competing they would not compete with the cigar shop and the vape shop don't usually compete that much together.
Thank you. I do appreciate that. And I do understand our task force wanting to be sensitive to our business owners that are already in this city. But I also want to stress that this code review is not a review looking backwards. This code review is what we want our city to look like 50 years from now. So if there is something in place which does not or will not serve our city for the next 50 years, then that's not something to continue. And we frequently make changes in our ordinance, removing things that we used to make people comply with, such as, I will point out, our commercial garbage and where you have to store your garbage and how you have to do that, we made people incur, our businesses incur horrific costs, like seriously horrific costs, costs that our city couldn't even comply with because it was so onerous. Rather than continue those, because we had already done something that incurred costs for people, we looked at that and said, okay, in the future though, this is not something we're going to do continuing forward, because we're looking at what do we want our city to look like going forward? 50 years from now, is this something that we believe will still make sense for our community? So that is the lens that we're hoping to go through. I really do love how they went through and said, okay, we're updating this with like the distillery and different things like that. That was really forward thinking. That hadn't come up yet in our city, but they had the forethought of saying, wait a minute, this is something that we really need to take into account. So I have a lot of appreciation for that.
Councilmember Workman.
Just a general question, because I can't remember. Do we have a policy on marijuana dispensaries yet? So I would anticipate it would follow something similar to this if.
Yeah, when the legislature
comes.
acts, I don't want to get ahead of the legislature because
Right.
we don't know what will come out of that particular bill. Yeah,
When
so,
Karen mentioned tobacco stores,
I believe we
Yeah.
have something for medical marijuana.
Yes.
well, for medical, but not,
those aren't typically retail stores.
That would not be a
No.
city licensed
That's all through the state.
that's all state.
state.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Gustafson.
I'm glad you brought up the marijuana question, because I believe we had a discussion, I think Councilmember Keeley actually brought it up as well, that this marijuana dispensary thing, we don't know what the state's gonna do yet, so we can't create an ordinance in it yet. But we don't wanna mess with the liquor yet until we know what that's all about. I mean, I think they go hand in hand for what the products are, and so, and they're both gonna be highly, looked at all times and controlled, and so I think at this point to change something like this, we've had so many discussions on this over the years. And again, the whole unfortunate thing where some people didn't show up at the last meeting and the vote had taken place, which gave us the tie, otherwise it would have gone through. If they'd have been there, we wouldn't be having this discussion about this right now.
Yeah, we would.
Well, you would, excuse me.
Yeah, we would.
Yeah, okay.
That sucker would have been pulled.
You would, well.
That would not be on consent.
As you know,
None-
you didn't have to pull it because we
None
don't
of
put it
these.
on consent anymore.
Yeah, none of
So
these are
that's-
gonna be on
that's a-
consent.
That's a moot point.
So absolutely, yeah.
But what
yeah.
I'm saying is that it would have came to us with a different deal. And that can happen in this council. We have a lot of 3-2 votes around here, and we can get a work session and say, we want you to do this, bring it back to the next meeting for our approval, and then one of the three doesn't show up, and now suddenly you got a 2-2 tie, or you have to postpone your vote until you have the full council. That's the process of government. It's not always smooth. Sometimes it's messy. You know, and I understand the frustration of the owners, because they sat there and they, basically thought that this had been resolved until that final vote.
Ms. Collins.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Gustafson, I think that the final vote only was indicative of those who had not voted for it in the first place, were still not voting for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that it was just a matter of, if, like you said, if the others had been absent, but it really made no difference except for the fact that they could not recommend approval. They just forwarded it to the council for adoption.
Councilmember Keeley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A couple of observations. One, I had some concerns over the process that we followed here because although it still is a recommendation to us, the fact that the Code Task Force took a vote on those specific provisions and then came back later and took a vote on the whole, and to their credit and the city staff, there was an open and transparent process the first time around back in January. But when they came back around to vote on it again and discuss the same thing, the stakeholders weren't invited to come back.
Yeah, Ms. Collins.
Yeah, Councilmember Keeley, I think that, like I said, the people who voted against it the first time voted against it the second time.
Right.
So there was not a change because the stakeholders were not
There
there.
were less members.
There was just less members.
No, I'm speaking of the folks in the audience, the
Yeah.
people who are going to be affected by the recommended decision. Given, yes, as you said, the same people who were for or against it were still for or against it, but the fact that that's just how it turned out. But how did we know that in advance? We didn't until it happened, and it happened without the participation of the people who are going to be directly affected by the outcome. So that was my concern over the process, is we should have invited them right back in again and said, we're going to have this broader discussion about the whole policy, and we're going to take these same two issues up again. Would you like to come back and be a part of this? As I was contacted by two of our liquor owners, they were blindsided by that. And I don't think that was the right process to follow personally.
Okay. Ms.
Second.
Collins, and then I
Go ahead.
have,
Then
oh,
can I
did you
finish
have a
my-
follow-up?
Yeah, I just got started.
Oh,
He's off to the races.
I have more notes.
oh, okay, well, proceed,
ahead.
because her,
Well, she's
Finish.
probably running to let her respond to my last comment, because I'm sure she wants to. I ran.
Ms. Collins?
I'm just trying to make sure that we're clear. Once the task force gives us all of their direction, they always bring back a final with all of their changes in it to make sure that we captured everything. They still didn't agree with it. There was no, at that point, we were not making any final changes to anything. It was just approving the final recommendation for the council. So at that point, we weren't changing that section anymore. There was some discussion on it, but nobody was changing their mind at that point.
Right. I think it's, if you look at it from the eyes of the folks who are affected by it or potentially affected by it, they should have been notified and involved in that final, right, discussion, because you can't predict what could have happened. What happened was the same vote, but we didn't know that until the vote was happening, right? And neither did they. And I think that's that transparency that I would suggest that we follow in the future. The other comment I had is I really thought about this. You showed some great comparisons of other cities where we're an outlier. And we were an outlier because decades ago, somebody made a decision at this council. I don't know if I'm sure it predated Madam Mayor.
Yeah,
Was
it goes all the way back to, I think, in the 70s.
70s.
Or 60s when it was put in place.
City council made a decision to be very different and overly, in my opinion, overly regulate liquor. But the decision was there, and it's been in place for decades. And for decades, these small business owners have had to follow it. And so it was, in my opinion, rather disruptive to have that done back in the 70s, if that's what it was.
Yeah.
And now we're being disruptive again, trying to now change something that's been in place for so long. So and my point there is the magnitude of this decision, I think, warrants something a lot more deeper and a more prolonged and different process to come to this final decision. So the code task force, I think, is one step. I don't think that's the process that we follow when we make a decision, given the impact that it's going to have on these businesses. So I think this is something I take a little bit more seriously than just, hey, the code force brought it to us, let's have a quick discussion, make a decision. I think we got to approach it differently. And I have an idea for it, but I actually would prefer to hold it. So lastly, and it was brought up already, but I'm concerned about the pending, and I would say the if, not when, of the state legislature making a decision on recreational cannabis. And we, as a council, in the future, when that happens, and it seems to be just a when, or an if, a when, not an if, but no one knows that. But we're going to have a very interesting discussion about regulatory requirements that the city's going to want to put around cannabis. And as Councilmember Gustafson said, I think we're a little hypocritical if we're going to, and quite frankly, most states have done it this way, allow free and open liquor, but overly or excessively regulate cannabis. They're very to me, that's very hypocritical in the fact that you're dealing with two controlled substances, but you're going to regulate them completely differently, right? And there's tons of data out there that obviously does not necessarily indicate that cannabis is as much of a burden on society as liquor, or drunk driving, or et cetera, right? So there's factors that hit society on both. And so I'm not sure that I want to have this discussion now, because I think it puts us in a very interesting predicament when that day comes and we have a discussion about cannabis. Because I'm guessing, based on what I've learned from the other states, is the legislature, if they decide to pass it one day, and almost 70% of Minnesotans want it passed, so I think that's why I think it's more when, not if. I'd rather have this discussion together, because I think we're going to be talking about the regulatory environment of 2 controlled substances, and it's a bigger deal than just the liquor today. So I think if we are going to do anything with liquor, I would rather run it through our governance process and have a full-blown, open, transparent process that involves the council more throughout a process. But my preference would actually be just wait and set it aside for now.
Yeah.
And wait until there's some direction from the state legislature related to the other regulated product when cannabis comes to us. So that's my thoughts.
Okay, Councilmember Gustafson.
Dan, I just wanted to kind of reaffirm what happened at the task force, as far as when we went to that last meeting, that was merely to approve a document that was created through all the approvals that we took along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And when it got there, it wasn't until the end of trying to get a vote on it that all of a sudden the chair objected, and then some other people started objecting. We were all shocked when that happened. We just assumed it's just gonna come in like on our consent agenda when we've already agreed to everything, and it happened that way. So I don't think the process was bad, but if you have a better process, I would certainly like to hear it, 'cause I would like to improve how quickly we can get through that sometimes with this task force myself. Because it takes months to get through some of these ordinances, just one ordinance.
Follow up, Madam Mayor? I don't disagree at all, Dan. I think there's the magnitude of these 2 is evident in the fact that it was debated more than once. That's how significant of an impact this decision is to these existing incumbents of this regulated product. And so I guess my statement is the task force did its work. There was some, surprises or interesting processes within it, but ultimately it's coming to us for us to debate. And I think I just certainly am not. I mean, I like the fact that some good things came out of the code cleanup, as was pointed out, because we wanted to make it more open and flexible for brew houses and other things. But these particular issues get to the core of the most significant financial impact to these current license holders, and that's just not something that I think you run through the code force and vote yes or no and do it. I think that's a little bigger decision.
So what you're
that
saying,
comes to us.
if I'm understanding, you're saying leave it the way it is, because we can always come back and revisit this, and you're saying we can revisit this during our governance process, where a lot more information can be brought to the table.
That's one route, and personally, I would rather wait until the cannabis issue comes forward. Because
And then we do it all at that time.
There's some discussions within that industry and some legislative language that actually marries the 2 or integrates the 2, and I think there's a lot we have to learn yet before we tackle it.
And that's what, Councilmember Schultz.
You said it's a matter of when, not if. First of all, you have to have a crystal ball to know that. I tend to agree with you. However.
It's a generalized statement, because we don't know.
I have also watched the committee meetings in our state legislature, so I might have a more jaundiced eye on that as far as length of time. We're going to have tobacco in front of us too. And staff is already saying they're going to be recommending to them that they remove those requirements on tobacco. So are we gonna get it back to us and then be like, oh no, better wait for marijuana, then we'll talk about tobacco? No, this is what we do. If we so choose to do it, which every other city that we looked at that we compared to, they were like, nah, not so much. So I don't, number one, I don't think we need to wait. Number two, I'm not excited about putting this through the governance process because we created this citizens task force to do this. And this is hard work, and they have put in a lot of hours. It does not mean we're just going to blanket approval everything that they do. But I want to caution on basically taking it back away from them and saying, well, yeah, I know you were supposed to do the citizens task force and go through everything, but we're just gonna pull it back and we're gonna do it how we want to do it. Which, if that's what we were gonna do, then we would just not have this task force. I do understand what you're saying about there are certain issues that maybe because of their complexity or that type of thing, we may wanna take a closer look at it or that type of thing. But even though I'm getting that spidey sense that I'm going to be on the minority vote, I would still rather be that way than take that away from our task force and what they're trying to do. I do urge council, and I urge our task force when they're going forward on this. We are looking at things for the future. And I do feel bad when we place requirements on businesses that are costly requirements and they had to incur those. I feel really bad when that happens, but you don't correct it by making the next guy do it and the next guy and the next guy and just continuing a mistake. Like that's one of those lost work fallacies. That's not something we need to do. So what we need to look at is, are these restrictions of benefit to our new businesses as they're coming in and our community as they are evolving in the coming decades? We need to take a very forward-looking view of this. If we want to do this structure over a period of time, or do something like that so that it's not just ripping a Band-Aid off all at once, that's definitely something that could be looked at. But I don't think that you keep negative impacts in place because other people suffered them, and so you want other people to continue to suffer under them. That's my view of that.
Councilmember Gustafson.
I kind of like the idea of accepting all the changes that they agreed on, because there are a lot of good changes there.
They did.
And there are really two disputed items that I believe we should be leaving that in place for now until we go through some other discussions along the road. And I'll go back to the fact that we already have a couple places where you can have licenses and nobody's getting them. Nobody's clamoring. I don't see where there's anyone being hurt, because nobody's asking for it.
But do you know the next 50 years?
Well, but we can always change.
Things change.
Yeah. Councilmember Keeley.
I don't usually disagree much with my fellow Councilmember Schultz, and I think we actually have a lot of agreement on this. I think the path away from where we're at is not just flipping a switch and changing it. I think it's a more thoughtful and maybe potentially a phased in over time or something like that. I mean, it's just not a yes or no. That's what, because I think that's the disruption that was put in back in the 70s, and I think this is a worse disruption to just flip the switch and change it. But I just want to remind everybody, for the record, I was a huge advocate for our enterprise zone and opening up the free market. I'm a free marketer at heart. I don't like government saying, you get to win, you don't. And that is what's been in place for the last 40 plus years or whatever it is, or 50 years. But we can't I don't believe we can just flip the switch. So I think what happened in the enterprise zone in the city of Burnsville was a great compromise. from where the positions are of the incumbents and where we wanted to be as a city. And it blossomed a lot of competition down there. When we now talk about making the rest of the city in that same vein, I think it's a bigger discussion, and it's not one that is just, let's just change it today.
But
type
the
of thing.
nice thing about what we did with that whole area of the shopping center is that our liquor license holder were part of that discussion. And they agreed, even though it was very difficult, you know, the demand in that area closed down Haskell's.
And Haskell's was well-known as to be struggling before we even changed the ordinance. They were not going to renew their lease, as I understand, but whether we had to discuss
Well, whatever, but it was there, and it's still a lot of, and then the liquor store on Cliff and River Hills, across from Kurt Detlefson's, Red Hawk, that closed around that time, right now. Ms.
Well,
Collins?
they closed for.
Madam
Yeah.
Mayor,
There's
they
a
closed
little
for a
different
different
deal there.
situation. They closed because they were bought out by Total Wine back when we still had a cap on how many
Yeah.
we could get.
Yeah, I understand that. So they took the money, but it was a business deal, and they did that, you know.
Correct.
So there's still opportunities. Members of the council, there are members in the audience who would like to speak, and they have all signed up. And I'd like to recognize them. We need to see them and hear them. First on is Mr. David Holtman from Red Lion. Mr. Holtman, please give us your name and address for the record. Yeah.
Hello,
Hello.
my name is David Houtman. I run Red Lion Liquors. The address is 12400 Nicollet Avenue in the heart of the city. And I am here to support the current ordinance. Thank you for your time, for listening. You've spoken so much about what I have here already, so I put down my thoughts. I want to read it anyway. I've been at Red Lion for 40-plus years and have seen this ordinance evolve to where it is today. It has not changed much. Why? Because it works. I understand free market, but these are not groceries, hardwares, housewares, or convenience stores. It's alcohol, a controlled substance. This product needs and gets regulation. Oversaturation isn't good for our industry nor this community. When the city was young, our city leaders drafted an ordinance with distance restrictions and freestanding building requirements. With the freestanding building requirement, it was intended that business owners would have a bigger investment in their business. They believed the owners would be more responsible with the distribution of alcohol. As well, it made it easier for law enforcement to patrol properties. The distance requirement would prevent saturation. When you relax or do away with these regulations, it doesn't create a good business climate for stores to succeed. These small businesses pay livable wages to their employees and also partner with many local charities who count on their support. Red Lion, for instance, we support Burnsville Rotary, this being our 19th year with Burnsville Uncorked. Burnsville 360 Communities and Fire Musters with our annual craft beer tasting, 18 years running. And we also supported the Moms program for years. And Brian Luther didn't plug it, but we're having our annual event tomorrow night, Sparkle, Sip, and Savor at the Ames Center. We can do this because of the positive business climate in this community. I know other communities have relaxed their ordinances and have had multiple stores fail. Failing stores will bring blight to communities. It has actually happened in our community with the loss of Haskell's Fine Wine Shop. This happens in most communities who ease regulations and is the direct result of a saturated market. Do we really want to see every gas station, superette, drugstore, convenience store sell alcoholic beverages? Regulations work. To have the privilege to sell alcohol, our owners and managers have had background checks performed on them by local law enforcement. There is a big responsibility of the sale of this product and keeping it out of the wrong hands. Now, you talked about cannabis. Yes, let's look down the road. And I, from the conversation I hear you have heard, our big liquor companies and local wholesalers are investing heavily in the distribution into cannabis because it is their thought that they already have the pathway to get this product from from the manufacturer to the retailer, to the public through its three-tier system, which is in place because of the way the liquor ordinance is designed. I hate to see the cover of the box come off and just open everything up. I really wouldn't want to see alcohol, cannabis, on every person that had a liquor license, on every gas station, hardware store, superette. You know, if we take the regulations away, it's just, I don't think it's good for the health of our community. And we talked about tobacco here. And, you know, Burnsville talking about maybe getting rid of that 3/4 mile on the tobacco. Look what other communities are doing. They're tightening the tobacco restrictions more than the state in favor of having a healthy community, a healthier community. So I think, well, we love this community. We all do here. That's why we're all here. I think we keep this ordinance in place. It's worked. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Holtman. It's great that you're here this evening. Appreciate you, and we see you and hear you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Scott Hilla. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor, and members of the council. My name is Scott Hill. The liquor store is at 2000 West Burnsville Parkway. I'm also been a citizen of Burnsville 64 years. I've been here my whole life. And my father started the liquor store and other businesses in Burnsville over the years.
And build a lot of.
And we built a lot of residential homes, thousands of them.
Including my house.
Whatever, yes. And I mean, I agree with everything that's kind of being said. You know what my point of view would be on this. But there's a couple points I want to bring up to be a little different, or different thought, is that council has the responsibility. You're responsible for what is happening in Burnsville. And are you accepting the responsibility? If you get rid of the small town business, our liquor store would be hurt by it, you know, and so then we won't be there anymore. And then the other ones won't be there anymore. And there'll be other bigger stores and, bigger business, and yeah, that's business. That's the way it is. That's the market. That's the way you feel. I can see that. But you're not being responsible for the citizens of Burnsville. If any of you have worked at a liquor store or been around them or even just gather it, there's a sense of the community. Every store, all the small stores have our people that come in. And I'm not talking about the people, they come in every now and then or whatever, and that's part of their community. And you're taking that away from them because we won't be there anymore. It's just a big business, and I think that if you worked at a store or saw what we do, when somebody comes in and maybe they're talking kind of loud and maybe they've had a couple. I know in our store, we pull another employee and we talk to the person and talk him down and we drive him home. And then the other person, we bring his car home for that person. We also deliver. And there's times that when we deliver, we're probably, we've been doing it for years. And you get into that touchy areas, the person, been drinking and, it's good to get them off the road. I've had police officers that have told me, what a great asset you're doing. You're keeping them off the street because they're not thinking right. I've had people break into our store to pick up a 6-pack of beer sitting on the counter in a display. They busted a $1,000 window just to pick up a 6-pack, and by the time they got the glass through the cans, it's all over the parking lot. So my point to that is they're not thinking right. It's a it's a $3 bottle or whatever it is, and they're spending thousands of dollars to break in. That's not, they're not thinking correctly. And with the delivery part, we take, and we'll have a family member call and say, hey, my mom or dad or my husband, my wife, whatever the relationship is having a problem, and we take the approach. We understand that. We're glad you called. And, we want to cut them off. Yes, we will cut them off. We are not going to err on keeping, oh, that's okay, I'll sell it to him anyway. He's not driving or she's not driving, it's okay. The point I'm making is we tell that person, you tell your significant other, whoever it is, we are going to do it. Don't put us in the middle. You know, don't put us in the middle and you're gonna hide behind them. And we tell that person when they do call, my point of it is, when that person calls and wants to order, we say, you know what, somebody in your family loves you a lot, and they wanna take care of you. You know what I mean? And you know that you've probably been drinking a little bit too much, and we're not gonna deliver to you anymore, and that person is doing it because they love you. They love you very much. Now, do you think you're gonna get any of that from any Total Wine or any of the big businesses that you guys, you know, that you're promoting? You know, it's the small businesses that are in the community that are part of the community. And they're you know, they got the hands on, they got the heartbeat of the clientele that's in the area. And each liquor store is in the area because in the 1960s, when they adopted that, in the late 60s, early 70s, you got to remember, I've heard people say, you know, oh, geez, you know, we'll just, I would never have voted for that. This is a stupid rule. You know, it's just anti-competition, whatever. You got to remember, back in the 60s, one, you're almost arrogant to even say something like that, because there's people out there that, in that time period, the wife stayed home, whether you liked it or not. They had one car, and probably half of Burnsville was gravel roads. I saw that in my own eyes. 42 was gravel road. 42 wasn't even a main road. Burnsville Parkway was. They moved it from 136 down to Burnsville Parkway, because 136 was supposed to go over the freeway. And then the lobbyists or people in Burnsville actually voted it, kind of where Sky Oaks is, or not, yeah, that was where it was supposed to cross. That's when the freeway was going in. You know, I mean, I know these things from the past, you know, and then for somebody today to say, hey, looking back, I wouldn't do that. It's like, well, you know, you probably would have, because, you know, nothing was open on Sundays either. You know, nothing was open. You had to get your gas on Saturday night when these laws were adopted. Now, you don't want to look back and see what that is, but look what it did. It put a liquor store in the community within a mile of everybody that lived there. And that made it nice, because then that store became that kind of community little hub, if it may. You know, you see it in Minneapolis, you might see a little grocery store on the corner. Well, that's feeding them, that's taking care of these people in that area, you know. And if it takes, you know, 65,000 people in our city, you know, and if or 8 or 10 stores or whatever, I'm not talking about the Burnsville Center, but, you know, the 4 or 5 or 8 stores that are out here covering the area, you know, what's wrong with that? Is that such a bad deal? If some business wants to come in, he can buy me out. You know, he can put a store there, he buys me out, or he buys out, you know, they can do it that way. So I just wanted to put a different approach on it to make you think a little differently, that, you know, you're voting and you're responsible for the citizens that maybe can't make that decision sometimes, you know. And it's nice to have a little liquor store there that helps take care of them before it ends up into a serious problem and they kill somebody on the road because they're not thinking right, you know. And I, you know, just want to make that point. You know, I agree with all the other points, and I'm not going to go on to all that. You know, I think you were very articulate in what you were saying, and Harper was very good about, you know, that point of view. But I want to put a little human part of it to understand. You're right now looking at the citizens of Burnsville, not the businesses that come in there. You should be looking at the citizens, because alcohol harms more people than marijuana. You know what I mean? It is worse than marijuana, and you want to restrict one and make the other one more liberal, so that every gas station and every grocery store has it, because every other state does it. Well, is that right? We stood up years ago and made different laws, and we were the stand-up of the communities, all the other cities, you know. So anyway, thank you for hearing me.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hiller. Councilmember Schultz, I'd like to recognize some of the other people who are here first before you make your comments.
I would prefer to respond.
You want to respond? Councilmember Schultz.
Thank you very much for your perspective on that. Rest assured, council is not just looking at the business. We are also looking at the residents. I can only speak for myself. I have no interest in placing higher restrictions on marijuana if that does become legal for adult use than for tobacco or for alcohol. So I'm looking at them all as fairly similar substances. So that is not something I would like to see. again, my intuition tells me that our state legislature might look at it slightly differently. But I do appreciate the point of view that you gave, and looking at it as these are small community businesses, and they're supposed to be in each little neighborhood, and that could be a possible reason for spreading them out. I don't disagree that having all of our various businesses and having a representation of all of our various businesses throughout our city is actually a really good thing, because we do want our city to be more walkable and for people to be able to get around that way and to be able to shop and live and work. We are supportive of that. I am neither more or less supportive of your business than I am of any other business, which would include Total Wine or any other business. We need to look at those businesses equally. We really should not be looking at them in a preferential manner. But we do value all of our businesses. We do value our residents. And I would also say that just knowing my fellow city council members, we might have a far more varied background and life experience than you might expect. So saying that we might not have worked at a liquor store, you might be surprised if you chat with some of us.
Thank you. Mr. John Perrier.
Thank you.
Good evening. Okay, I'm going to have you move away from the.
Sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
It's misleading.
Yeah, I have a liquor store at County Road 11, and I also have been a Burnsville resident for about 20 years now. I'll probably let Tony give you a little more information on some of the legalities we have, but we're not exactly a free market business. You know, we're told who we can hire, who we can't hire, when I can be open, when I can't be open, how I pay my bills, when I pay my bills. If the IRS comes to audit you, it's for 3 years or 5 years. Mine is 7 years. They give you a week or two to get your paperwork in order. Mine is 30 minutes. So it's not like a free market business. I understand the regulations, and I'm glad they're there because they help us compete in a fair way with what we have. You know, but I think, you know, on that map, the two largest cities in our state weren't on there, Minneapolis and St. Paul, and both of them have regulations on distance between other stores. And it's something that it's kind of like, well, that's half the population of this state is under the same type of rules. But I think, you know, all of us are just worried about our businesses and trying to be successful and live in this community and be part of it. So I'll let Tony come over and take over from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perrier. Mr. Chesak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. City Council, there's a lot of pressure that he just put on me to try to wrap this thing up, so I thanks Dave for that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Appreciate that stress. I run a...
Okay, you want to give us your
I'm gonna need
name
a
and
break
address
here,
for
just
the
to
record?
sit down and just take a little breather here. I've known Dave for years. I run a group called the Minnesota Licensed Beverage Association.
So just give us your
Yeah,
address for the
Tony
record.
Chesak, Chesak. I live in Matamidi. I have an office in St. Paul, 475 Etna Street, Suite 11, in wonderful downtown St. Paul. The trade association that I have been a part of for 21 years represents bars, restaurants, and liquor stores. We don't have large corporate members of our association. We are truly a mom and pop. It's kind of overused, but a small family business ran type of an organization. And I've been the director for about 8. Before that, I did all of our alcohol server training and on membership generation for about 14 years. And so I wanted just what the business owners have to say, I can never do a better job than they do, just because they run their joints and I just help them. And I've been around the business my whole life. Born and raised in a dairy farm in southeastern Wisconsin, but my grandparents and aunts and uncles have owned dozens of bowling alleys and restaurants and liquor stores. And I've seen, coming from a state like Wisconsin where big box has truly taken over. I'm from Jackson, Wisconsin, outside of West Bend, Wisconsin. I go back to see my parents whose both health are failing simultaneously. There are no more independent liquor stores in my hometown. There used to be Hops and Schnapps. And then when Hops and Schnapps, when Piggly Wiggly came in, I got a bunch of fun names for you. When Piggly Wiggly came in,
Steve's laughing.
when about 6 months after Piggly Wiggly put in their beer cave, Hops and Schnapps is no longer. I've seen recently, and I don't beat up Total Wine anymore. Ed Cooper and I are good friends, and they're just a big box group, and we deal with them as they come. They're expanding more in Minnesota, and we welcome that. But when they went into Roseville, 3 stores shut down. The most recent city to get rid of their distance restrictions was Maplewood. Maplewood had a distance requirement, and the Hy-Vee wanted to come into Maplewood for years. But because they had a distance requirement, every Hy-Vee they put in Minnesota has to have a liquor store in it. And our organization supports grocery stores and convenience stores having liquor. Yes, we do. Don't believe to the contrary. There are just certain requirements you have to have. If you want a liquor store in your convenience store, have a liquor store in your grocery store, there are certain common vestibule, separate entrance. There's youth access issues that I think are maintained by the model that we have. But in Maplewood, the Hy-Vee was allowed to come in, and they were not going to build in the old Rainbow Foods location on Wiper Avenue near Highway 36. And they went right across the street from a single mother of 3, and she is going out of business before the end of the year. I just visited her a couple weeks ago, and her business is down 75% due to the fact that they got rid of their distance requirements, and the Hy-Vee went right across the street. St. Paul tried this a few years back to get rid of their half-mile restriction and go to a quarter-mile restriction because of a license holder that wanted to sell wine out of his, bottled wine out of his brewery. And there was a big uprising from the community. There was a big uprising from the business community as well. We have Class 1 cities. St. Paul and Minneapolis are 2 of them. And by population, they're allowed X amount of liquor licenses, off-premise licenses. St. Paul has never come close to maxing out on their liquor licenses. Even though they have more to give, they've never come close to maxing out. And with the census redo here, they'll be allowed to have more liquor stores in St. Paul. And there are no new requests for liquor stores. I've talked to city staff leading up to this meeting today, and there's been no indication that I've heard of any large company wanting to come in to put a liquor store between 2 stores that are already existing. There hasn't been a big public uprising from your constituents that have said we need more liquor outlets. If the ordinance was drafted in the late 60s, early 70s, that's 50 years ago, and there hasn't seemed to be a huge demand for more liquor licenses within the last 50 years. So I understand the argument moving things from on the Planning Commission for the city of Matamidi, so I understand the progressive nature of what we have to look forward to. But when you've got businesses in your community that have invested for as long as they have, I'm glad that you put together the task force. I thought that was a pretty savvy idea, and I'm glad you're listening to them like you kind of listen to a planning commission. You don't have to adopt what they say, but listening to that kind of an impartial group is a good thing. And I think their vote has been clear, a little muddied with the 4-4 vote. I understand that, and I'm sure you guys will get through that at some point in time. But I just always remind. I come to city councils occasionally. I seem to spend more time in city councils than I do the state capitol. Marijuana is coming. You're right, Councilmember Schultz, it is coming. I think COVID kind of screwed the plans up for a good governor. We're hearing more about 2023 being kind of the magical year that recreational cannabis, every state that have adopted recreational cannabis usage have instilled distance requirements and restrictions on moratorium of licenses for their cities. So there is some training wheels or some parameters around controlled substances. To the other gentleman's point, there's been a lot of tobacco restrictions lately. St. Paul just disallowed liquor stores to have tobacco being sold, menthol tobacco being sold in their stores. St. Paul has just passed an ordinance where you have to be 21 to be in a liquor store. If you're not apparently a guardian, you can't come in. That prevents youth access. I supported that. I thought that was for a big city. That was kind of a slick idea. We are regulated. Some folks feel that we might be over-regulated, but there's regulations on the substance for a reason. And I applaud the license holders showing up and kind of stating their case, and I appreciate the time that you've given me. I don't live in the community. I've got a lot of members of my association in your community, and sometimes they call me because they're frustrated and scared. And I think this is one of those times when they just don't know why there's a need to get rid of the 3/4 mile. The 3/4 mile has really never been challenged. And if it is challenged, and it may be one day, Councilmember Schultz, there's no doubt about it that one day that a license holder may come in and say, I want to go right there. But there are spots available, according to city staff. And you can buy, it's been proven in Burnsville, your license is up for sale. You can't buy your license. You can buy your business and license through the city, I understand that. But there are things that are available for entrepreneurs to come into Burnsville and expand their offerings. The tap rooms, I deal with every liquor legislative issue from 6-packs and 12-packs for breweries and distilleries, which, by the way, we're supporting. You've heard it here, second. The state legislature is certain that the retailers are okay with some of the expansion efforts from the breweries and distilleries and cideries and the wineries that need to happen. It's not going to kill the independent liquor stores, but as frustrating as it is for some of you council members to see a liquor issue being heard a couple times in councils, I've dealt with certain liquor issues for 21 years, the same issue. Things don't move quick with booze in Minnesota, there's no doubt about that. And I think with some good reason of the product that we have and the restrictive nature of it. And so proceed with caution. I think 50 years is going to be, I'm not going to be here, but I know that we want to always leave things better than we left them. I'm an old Boy Scout for a reason, and I think that that's a good idea to do. But I also know looking back 50 years, things haven't changed a whole lot with booze here in Burnsville. But we have more offerings now. The breweries and distilleries and the cideries and the wineries can open up and have tap rooms and cocktail rooms and offerings. And God forbid this year I can get these bills passed through the Senate Commerce. It's going to be heck to do, but I think I've got it. We can allow some of these breweries to do more than they're doing right now, and that's not always supported by our liquor industry. If I say the breweries can sell a 12-pack, I'm going to have some liquor stores that aren't going to like that, and I get that. I get that, guys. But it's one of those things, trending parts of the industry, that we have to pivot a little bit. So we always seem to be coined with the big bad liquor lobby. It's me and 2 lobbyists and a guy that works in my office. We're just a people. We have a lot of members because we listen to our people and we try to fight the fight. So I just wanted to come and let you know that cities that have done this, it has been negative for the business community as a whole. And independent owners have been put out because of that, and typically big box wins in these situations when you do get rid of these distance requirements. So I've talked too much. So Mayor, thank you for your time. Council, thank you for your time, and I'll hang out for questions if you got questions or concerns. I'll just be here for a couple minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chesak, and thank you to all of our liquor license holders. We really appreciate that you are here because it is important to all of you. And Burnsville has always been business friendly. Now, I know the history of what happened at the shopping center and why we pivoted. And you all came in and we talked about why we needed to make those changes. Because Costco wanted to come in. It wasn't Total Wine. It was Costco. And we wanted Costco. And Costco wasn't going to go to Lakeville because Lakeville is municipal. Savage is municipal. Apple Valley is municipal. But we're not. So we had to find a way for us to bring in this store that the community also wanted. You talk about what the community wants. I'm listening. I listen to all of you. I remember when we did the heart of the city, Mr. Haltman, and you thought your business was going to go down because we were going to add more density, but your business got better when we did the heart of the city. And you're not mad at me anymore. But the thing is, we are business friendly and we work together because it is important that we hear you, we see you, and we understand. The thing is, we can always change. We changed when we wanted to have Costco. And we all sat down together and we said, okay, this is an area that there won't be restriction. And then Total Wine came in, and well, Haskell's came in, Total Wine came in, and there's more opportunities there. But all of you were part of that discussion. And at that time, we also reduced the distance from 1 mile to 3/4 miles. You know, that was something we did together, and that's what a community does. And so what I'm hearing from you and hearing from Mr. Rausch also is that these are small businesses in Burnsville, and they've been community businesses for a long time, as Mr. Hill talks about. And I've been to all of your stores. And I've seen how you care for your customers. Mrs. Cobb, I know what you do when you, even around Christmas, is delivering things for your great customers. So I do understand all of what you go through, every one of you, because you're part of the community and you've been around and you care about the community. So I believe that we should leave the ordinance as is, and I am grateful to the task force for including some other services and businesses that would help and expand our community, because that is good. And we can always, when we look to the future, we can make adjustments as we continue to move forward. But I would like, right now, as the task force is there to listen to all of you and to bring a recommendation. But just like the commissions, if they don't have a unanimous, then it is our responsibility to make that choice, that vote. And that's what we need to do. So for me, to move forward, to keep the distance and to keep the freestanding building. And there are opportunities in Burnsville for other liquor store owners to come in. And if they wanted to purchase your store, that's also available. But the thing is, there are opportunities for other, and they're not banging down the door and saying, we want to go to Burnsville. And we're surrounded by municipal, and everything continues to go well. But when we do that, whether we have a task force or not, we will make sure that we make the decisions with you, because you're part of our community, and that's the way I see it. And so I appreciate that you all stay engaged, and that all of you are long-time residents of this community. You know, so thank you for that. Councilmember Schultz.
Mr. Roush, no worries about batting cleanup. You did it. You were good. You
mean Mr. Chesick?
Mr. Chesick. Yeah. You were very good at framing the argument, and yes, you and your high-powered lobby firm. Believe me, I get what you're saying on that. And I also 100% understand that for our business owners, this is not an academic discussion. This is your livelihoods. And it impacts not just your livelihoods, but how you interact in the community, the things you do in the community, and all of that. Everyone on council has an absolute appreciation for that, both an appreciation for it just in general and an appreciation specifically on our businesses, because they do interact heavily and they do contribute quite a bit to our community. So absolutely. Even if the task force is not going to bring something back in a manner that I personally want, I do want to make sure that we are respectful of their work. They're putting in a lot of hours and time. And so I do want us to be very respectful of that. And also, just for the record, I would have voted no on Costco because I would not have wanted to be preferential on a business. And my view on that would have either been, this changes for the city, or it doesn't, because we're not going to change it for one business. And I'm not dissing any of my fellow city council members, because I also understand that everyone was very excited for Costco to come in, and, like, most of my outfits are from Costco. Like, I have a lot of love for Costco. But again, we have to look at things in a very impartial manner when we're looking at these types of decisions. So I will not be making a motion, but I will be interested in what motion or amendment that my fellow city council members will come up with on this, because I do think we should vote on it.
Councilmember Gustafson.
Well, I won't make you wait long for that.
I didn't think so.
I would like to make a motion that we do adopt the changes that the task force has agreed on coming forward, and to retain the freestanding building and the 3/4 mile separation, which were the two disputed items.
Okay.
But they made a lot of good changes on a lot of things, and we don't want to lose that.
Okay. There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
May I make a friendly amendment,
So, of course.
which you can take or reject?
I know, that's what I like about it.
My friendly amendment is that we then do away with the freestanding building, but keep the other requirement of the 3/4 mile separation. Will you accept my friendly amendment?
Not at this time.
Okay. Councilmember Workman, you have thoughts?
I don't know if anybody wants to make a second or
Okay,
not, but
yeah, you
I'm not making that second at this
I
moment.
will make the second if nobody wants to make that second. I'll second the motion.
Okay.
Okay.
Can
Now,
I
do you want
open for
discussion now?
Yes.
Okay, Councilmember Workman.
I don't remember how I voted on this last time. I don't know why I just said that publicly, but I don't. Because the meeting we had last time, I think, went about as long as this one. And we had a lot of compelling arguments, both for and against repealing and keeping this. And I can honestly see both sides of this coin. And the gentleman from the Beverage Association made a lot of strong points. Just thinking out loud, if the concern is big box, I think about where is big box going to go within the city outside of the County Road 42 corridor, and I can't wrap my head around that, because I can't see any potential places where they would come in that they're not already well established. Again, I don't have a crystal ball. If the concern is freestanding, and we repeal that, that in turn could then welcome in, I guess, more mom and pop shops. But then I think about tired strip malls in Burnsville, and is a small liquor store helping redevelop an otherwise blighted area? I don't think it does help. But I also agree with a lot of what Councilmember Schultz has said tonight, and what I think we talked about last time. I'm just airing out my thought process on this, and the only comments made up here tonight that I agreed with the strongest was maybe tabling this and waiting till marijuana comes back around so that we can have an honest dialogue about this and that, because I think the two are going to be fairly closely connected as far as how they're regulated and how they're perceived by the community. But
So you're
I
saying
don't know
keep
that
the distance and the
exists at this point.
freestanding and revisit it later on?
I would like to come back to this again in the future, and I don't know why I'm saying that, because this is a contentious issue. But the motion has already been made, so I'm
And second.
impressed there.
Yeah, there's a motion and a second, and we need a fourth-fifth vote.
Madam Mayor, point of clarification, we just need a simple majority vote for the ordinance. We need a supermajority for the summary ordinance publication.
Can you explain that?
This, because we have to.
We need
Yeah.
4 council members to vote yes to publish the ordinance in a summary version, so that the ordinance doesn't have to be published in its entirety. It's a statutory requirement.
Yeah, yeah. But if we do a fourth-fifth, it covers both.
4/5 would
Yeah,
cover both.
that's what I'm
Thank
getting
you.
at. you know.
As long as we
I can,
don't have a
if I have to peel it down, I can peel it down. But the thing is, if I go for the highest vote that I need, it covers everything.
Well, Mayor,
Mr. Shepherd?
I don't think the motion included the summary publication, so we would need to do a separate motion.
So I need to have a motion for the summary. So I need, the first motion is to keep the freestanding and the distance and accept the work that came in from the task force.
Yeah. The first motion that Councilmember
It's just that-
Gustafson made
yeah.
is to adopt the ordinance that's in front of you, which keeps those restrictions. Yep.
And then I'll come back and get the summary motion, which is a 4/5 vote. Okay.
Or Member Gustafson could recuse his motion and re-motion.
Well, according to the attorney, is that because of the way it's written, we're going to have to go with first.
I think, do you want me to amend my motion to include the summary?
Mayor and council, I think it might just be easier just to do it
The way,
in two. Yeah.
in two, that's
Yeah.
what he's saying. Yeah, Councilmember Schultz.
And so clarification, if this motion does pass, it would include the other recommendations that are in there.
Yeah.
That includes about the distillery and different
Yeah.
things like that. So just so,
Yeah.
for everyone playing at home,
Yeah,
That's
it
the
is.
motion.
Yeah, that's the motion that Councilmember Gustafson made, and keeping the distance and the freestanding. Okay, so there's a motion and a second. And clerk, take the roll, please.
Make this as
Gustafson.
dramatic as possible.
Aye.
Couts,
Aye.
Keeley,
Aye.
Schultz,
no.
Workman.
Aye.
Okay. Councilmember Gustafson, do you want to make the motion for summary or ordinance?
I would like to make a motion to approve the summary ordinance.
I will second that.
There's a motion and a second. Please take the roll, Ms. Collins.
Gustafson,
Aye.
Couts,
Aye.
Keeley,
Aye.
Schultz,
Yes.
Workman.
Aye.
Thank you. We have maintained the distance and the freestanding building, and we have accepted the new additions to the ordinance. Okay. Thank you. You guys all understand that? Okay, thank you very much. And Mr. Roush, thank you so much for coming in, representing the task force. Really appreciate it. Yeah. Okay, the next item is a very important item. Not that all the other items that we had wasn't important, but this is very important. And it's so wonderful to see your children here, and they stayed up late and
Little taste of a public hearing.
You should have had him here for the garbage can one.
I know.
Item 5E is to ratify the employment agreement for the city manager, Greg Lindberg. Presenting this evening is our HR director, Carissa Bartholomew. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I have the honor this evening of bringing forward to you the item for an employment agreement for the city manager with Greg Lindberg. So on April 11th, we had a special council work session in which the council discussed a city manager employment agreement, compensation for the city manager position, and where to go with next steps with our city manager role. At that point in time, the council agreed to a city manager employment agreement. Everyone agreed to the compensation, and the council was unanimous in their desire to appoint Greg Lindberg to the city manager position. So that evening, they also provided an offer to Greg Lindberg for the city manager position, which he then accepted. So this evening, I'm bringing forward to you a request to formally ratify the employment agreement for the city manager position for Mr. Greg Lindberg.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bartholomew. And, you know, your whole family is here, Mrs. Lindberg, and Hannah and
Anders and Haley.
Haley and Anders, welcome. And I know that you all wanted to make sure you're here to see your father, get ratified. Hannah, is it past your bedtime? But, members of the council, I need a motion, and then I think we need to take photos, because we need to do that with our city manager, and then also have his family come here. And it's wonderful that we have members of our staff also here, our chief, fire chief Jungman, our police chief, Tanya Schwartz, Public Works Director, Ryan, Community Development Director, Jenny Faulkner, and we have Carissa Larson, Director of Communications and Community Engagement, and we have also have Bethany Brewer is here with our Organizational Development Coordinator. So thank you, everybody, for being here and supporting Mr. Lindbergh. So, may I, Councilmember Keeley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Before we vote, I just want to express my gratitude for Greg coming to our city a couple years ago or so. In this last few months where we've experienced Mr. Lindbergh as the interim, we have seen not only an incredible amount of work being done, but the real key is Greg embodies better together, teamwork, collaboration, open and transparent, as good as anybody I've ever worked with. And he has brought the entire city together with new processes involving more people, involving department heads and supervisors. And we as a council, I think I speak for everyone, have enjoyed this new process that's more open and transparent, not only to the public, but within City Hall. And it's been a really remarkable 90-day period where an enormous amount of work has gotten done. And I know he'll continue to do it, but I think it's fair to let him have a day off so he can rest once in a while and spend time with his family. He's taken on an enormous amount of things to do right away, and it's been just a joy to work with Mr. Lindbergh. And with that, it is my honor to make the motion
To ratify
the 2022 employment agreement for City Manager Greg Lindbergh.
Okay, there's a motion?
I will second that.
And seconded by Councilmember
With
Gustafson.
enthusiasm.
Yes, and then Councilmember Workman.
Once again, Councilmember Keeley took the words out of my mouth.
Sorry.
I just wanted to congratulate Greg. I got a little dusty when I saw the kids walk in, and I've calmed those nerves. But Greg, congratulations. You're an amazing guy. The entire council supports you in this role, and we're collectively looking forward to the work that you're going to be doing with us and with this organization. So welcome, and thank you for picking us.
Yeah. Mr. Lindbergh, it's my great pleasure to have worked with you. And one of the things that I noticed, when we had our all-day work session, we agreed on some things, and you quickly followed through with every one of them. And even in your weeklies are very detailed, and they all go back to what we talked about. So I want to thank you for your dedication and commitment, for all of us to work together, and that we deliver the services that the residents and businesses of Burnsville expect of us. And you take difficult subjects, especially when we're in the midst of budgets, and you're not afraid to speak truth to us. So thank you. The other is that I am so proud that you're out there talking to all of our staff when you're meeting with our firefighters and our police, and you're there for their briefings, and also you're at Public Works building, and I believe tomorrow you're having a big meeting where you're going to be standing for questions. And you'll
Indeed.
be answering.
Yep.
And so with that, so Mrs. Lindberg, thank you for sharing your husband with us, because we're truly grateful for what he has done. But I also know that it takes him away from you and the children, because I believe last night he was doing briefings at police and our chief at 9:30. So he didn't get home till probably very, very late. And of late, he's been all over the place, and I thank you for understanding the work that he has to do for us, but also because when he's here, you're a single parent. You know, and I understand that, and so I hope you know that we care about you. You're part of our family also, and with the children. So thank you so much for sharing your husband with us. Yeah, and to Anders and Haley and Hannah, thank you for sharing your daddy with us, okay? Are you guys okay with that? Okay, thank you so much. So there's a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay, and the motion carries. Now, Mrs. Lindberg and children, can you guys come forward so we can take photos? And I think we have our communications director who can take those photos. So, and then we'll have a photo with all of us, because I think we have to memorialize something
Go
like
down
this.
or stay up here?
So if you guys can all stand up, and Greg, you and I go down here with your family.
Sure thing.
Careful not to back.
So,
It's not over yet.
can you guys go stand up there with the council also, and some in front here, because this is all of us together. So.
Scaring the children.
I know, I do that all the time.
Hey, Hannah, are you sleeping? Okay, come on, you guys. Do you want to do that one first, and then we'll
You want to slide this way instead of yourself?
Councilmember Schultz, you know what I'm going to ask you. There we go. That's better. That's very good. All right. Let's do one more here. All right.
Okay, so, everybody, if you can come up, and then, Jerry, can you take the picture?
Sure.
Please? Because we need Carissa and Jenny up here, yeah, come here.
Right, you're supposed to stand in
Yeah.
front.
I thought about
Maybe
doing
I should
something funny
stand
and
back.
stand up front, but I didn't.
Well, if you
It'd
do
be
it,
my
stand
honor
in
to
front.
stand
Right
there.
here.
It's not funny, it's tradition.
It's
Yeah.
tradition, okay.
So everybody that's here, okay, we got everybody, okay.
Other duties is
Yeah.
Right.
Are you sure?
1, 2, 3. Take one more.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
She's in the drink.
With that, a
Mark,
motion
during the
to
meeting from down
adjourn.
there.
Huh? A motion to adjourn is in order.
So moved.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay, and a motion carries. Okay, our meeting is done, children.
You can be loud.